This is Larry Kudlow, and it's time for protecting your future. So, when uncertainty rises, smart investors look for stability. For generations, gold and silver have helped protect purchasing power through inflation, market swings, economic uncertainty. Learn how precious metals can help diversify and protect what matters most. Start building your financial foundation today and go to asbgold.com. That's asbgold.com. All right. Now we're going to bring in my great friend Michael Faulkender, former Deputy Secretary of Treasury. He's the head of economics, America Prosperity at the America First Policy Institute. Michael, thank you for this. So you got to explain to me, I don't understand this stuff. Why can't the Senate and the House did get a reconciliation bill, but it lacked tax cuts, no indexing of capital gains or increases in the cap gains exemption for the sale of a home, no spending cuts, no offsets, nothing about waste, fraud, and corruption and all, the stuff that Emmett Oz has been doing, and J.D. Vance and Bob Kennedy, and whining in the Senate, John Thune, who's, he's a good guy, I know him, but he's saying we don't have 50 votes. I mean, why, where's their swag? Where's their message? I just don't understand it, Michael.
I agree with you, Larry. The problem is that they're not even willing to defend what we did in the big, beautiful bill. They seem to think that because we tightened eligibility and reimposed work requirements, that's something that they don't even want to talk about. And so their fear of going into another reconciliation package that has tax cuts. So sorry to get into the weeds on this, but if you provide instructions to the Senate Finance Committee to do tax cuts, then anything under the jurisdiction of the Senate Finance Committee comes subject to amendment that the Democrats put forward on things like health care. And instead of the Republicans defending, like I said, the tightening of eligibility and saying that we are going to reward work, they seem to be running away from it. And that seems to me, at least the explanation I'm hearing, as to why they don't want anything that would be subject to the Senate Finance Committee to be in the budget resolution. Now, I think that's cowardice, because I think we can entirely defend that the best way for people to get health care is to have a job. That it should be coming from work. We need to reward work. We need to stop buying into the terms of the Democrats who desire a dependency society. Their whole mantra is if they can get people addicted to government, then they will get a permanent voting majority. We need to entirely change the paradigm and say people and families are best structured if they are self-sufficient. We should reward work. We should not have such a generous safety net program that encourages this cross-generational dependency. And that's why we should absolutely go after the massive Obamacare subsidies that are still in law, that Joe Biden greatly increased during the pandemic, under the guise of the pandemic, and yet we haven't taken them away.
Why don't we? Yeah, look, I've heard this argument about a vote-a-rama with Democratic amendments. So, okay, fine, beat them back. Defeat the amendments. I mean, that's part of the job of the majority leader, to whip through and stop, and then go. Look, we've talked a million times about the whole issue of inflation indexing capital gains or increasing the exemptions. Okay, it's just common sense. Inflation's gone up the last nearly 30 years by 108%. The Biden inflation cumulatively went up 21%. Recently, and that's affordability. So you want to, you want people to sell their home, they don't need it, empty nesters, blah, blah, blah. Make it easy for them. I mean, I was talking to somebody in the administration, a cabinet officer who's quite interested in this stuff. He said, give everybody a $2 million exemption. I think that's fabulous. But the point is, why aren't they doing that stuff? Instead of whining and telling us what we can't do, this is why I say they lost their swag. Okay, they're not winning. Tommy Tuberville was saying, no one's winning. We've lost momentum. That's exactly right. They're just not getting the job done. I mean, I know you've outlined that you're right. This is how the game works, but we've done this before. We have the majority. Let's beat them back.
I agree with you entirely. Now, I don't know to what extent, because Mitch McConnell is not there, that's one less vote, but I don't see why these aren't things that we can get Tom Tillis, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins to rally around. These are just core conservative principles. And again, if you want to address housing affordability, then as you said, let's remove the inflation tax from the Biden administration that is effectively what a capital gains tax on home equity increases is. It's an inflation tax.
Yes.
So on the middle class,
that's a good way to put it.
That seems to me to be an argument that we ought to be able to win. Are you for or are you against the Biden inflation tax? Because if you're opposed to the Biden inflation tax, then we, at minimum, should in this bill index that we should double or even take higher the home equity exemption and then index it to inflation going forward.
Yes. Now, the other point you're making is important, too. Now, they got one big, beautiful bill, which, by the way, they don't hardly sell even that. But that was a year ago. So what have you done for me lately, before the midterms? People want to see, how are you helping me this year? Okay. Why can't they do something, Michael, to institutionalize legislation on the defunding of, you mentioned Obamacare increase, those subsidies, and other areas, in Medicaid where there's clear corruption. Clear corruption. I mean, I don't know, the GSA number, government services, was $500 billion plus waste, fraud, and abuse. And that was the number Elon Musk used over a year ago. I remember interviewing Elon, and he talked about five, and he said our number came out the same as the GSA. All right, there's got to be in there a lot of spending cut offsets, right, to fund, let's say, military, for example, very important right now. But they're not talking about that, Michael. There's got to be stuff that can be done.
And that's because they need to flip the narrative on it. So I remember when I had my confirmation hearing, I was getting, questions from the Democrats about cutting people off of Medicaid. And I said to one of them, Senator, last time I checked, people getting off of government benefits because they got a job is a good thing. That used to be something that we used to celebrate on a bipartisan basis. So if because we are creating a strong economy and because there are jobs out there and the unemployment rate is low, we are able to move people off of welfare and back onto work. And that as a result of that, Medicaid numbers go down. That is something to celebrate. That's aspirational. And I don't understand why we can't assert that these reductions we're taking illegal immigrants off of the Medicaid rolls. We are taking able-bodied adults. There was a piece on Life's Prosperity earlier this week, Steve Moore's group, that said the prime labor force participation rate among men is at a historic low. Right. Why? Why shouldn't able-bodied men without dependents be working? And if the answer is because we have made social benefits too generous, then we need to, especially at a time of full employment, we need to take another look at them and make the case that we should not be running deficits in order to enable that part of the labor force to not work. And if, as a result of enforcing those requirements and tightening eligibility, we get reductions in Medicaid rolls, that is something to celebrate instead of something that we run away from.
So I'm looking at this thing, labor force participation rate, 25 to 54 years. That's the heart of the workforce, right? In the early 1950s and most of the 60s, that thing's participation rate was running around 97%, 96%.
Exactly.
Gradually
it's
falls.
Below 90 now.
You know what? I'm looking at it. Right. Looks to me on these old eyes. Yes, it's 89 or 90%. So it's dropped about 7 or 8 points. Now, so that means roughly how many people you think? There's 160 million people in the workforce today, right? 162 million civilian workforce, something like that. So you're down. The
prime component of that is over 100 million. More than half of that is men. So you're looking at 50 to 60 million is prime age men. So
you're down about
10% reduction.
It's about
5 million.
I'm saying about 6, 7, 8 million people.
Yeah.
Is that in back of the envelope? Get them back to work, and to get right. And so you go from welfare to workfare.
Well, and Larry, remember the workforce has changed in a way that even those with disabilities can now work in jobs that didn't exist 50 years ago. So one of the reasons, for instance, Social Security disability rolls have come down so much is because the nature of work has changed and it requires less physical labor. So the changing nature of work means that the labor force participation rate of prime age men should actually increase over that time period, not decrease.
That's a very good point. You can do stuff right. It's not hard labor work. You can do stuff. It's brain work, mental work. So I don't understand. I mean, what are you hearing? I was not able to make our board meeting yesterday for.
I mean, what I'm hearing is that
what was the report? Yeah,
the votes that are there are to do the skinny reconciliation because the conditions. It used to be the case that we could do a defense supplemental through regular order. But as we saw with the funding of DHS, the Democrats are going to do the same thing on the defense supplemental. They are going to try to so neuter the president that we cannot do a defense supplemental through regular order. We're going to have to do it solely with Republican votes through reconciliation. So it's inevitably going to be the case that there is going to be a reconciliation 3.0. The question right now is it going to get done before the election? Or are they going to have to punt it to the lame duck session? I can somewhat understand the majority leader's concern that the Democrats also are going to drag their feet on a continuing resolution, that they're maybe hoping for a government shutdown post-September 30th, and that maybe what he needs to do is use Reconciliation 3.0, quite frankly, to do a CR rather than just the narrow bill. And that may be why. So what John Thune is doing right now, and I think it's somewhat smart, is figure out where the Democrats at on a continuing resolution so that we are not going into an election day with a government shutdown.
But we got to jump out. But Michael, here, at the minimum, even if you can't get it done, they should be messaging, waste, fraud, and abuse, work effort, eligibility, and tax cuts for growth.
And the Biden inflation tax.
I like the Biden inflation tax. I like that phraseology. They should just message it, put some swag into it. Here's what we're going to do. Right now, nobody knows what they're going to do. I got to get out of here. Michael Faulkender, you're terrific.
Nice to be with you.
America First Policy Institute. He's the big guy, economics and prosperity, former Deputy Secretary of Treasury. We're going to take a quick break. I'm Kudlow. We're going to hit E.J. Antoni for some more on the labor force right after this.